One of the slides I showed in my presentation was a reporter doing a piece to camera, and I said then, and it's absolutely true, that 5 minutes after I took that photograph we came under sniper fire, and I was actually on the phone to London, and yeah, and I looked up and everybody is lying on the ground and people are running to hide behind cars, and I had that moment. It's like, what are they doing? And then I heard this bullets going overhead, and it was like, shit. Dived under cover. Security advisor, ex-military, came and said, right, okay guys, we've got one group over there, one group here, we're going to meet at the car. I want you just to go very quickly. This sniper is firing from a long way away. Don't think he's going to hit you. Let's just go to the car. We ran to the car and we jumped in the car, and one of the things, little thing, when you get the crew car, always get the big crew car with the sliding door. Why? Because if you've got a big sliding door, you throw yourself in and then you go. And we threw ourselves in and we were about to go. And a French photographer who had no body armour, nothing, threw himself in and said, please, take it. And in his eyes was total fear, because he hadn't thought it through. We knew what we were doing. We had gone properly prepared, properly briefed. We had a security advisor, we had our armour on, we had the car waiting. Small thing, when you get somewhere and you might have to run away quickly, get the driver to turn the car around, because you don't want to be doing a 3-point turn. You want to jump in the car, go. So I spend a lot of time trying to avoid trouble. Unfortunately, sometimes trouble finds me. So one job that I will do is that I will be the IC, the in charge on a major story. So for example, the Italian earthquake last summer, you remember, I was in Brussels, I went straight down to Italy, and I was the IC, and that meant I was responsible for all of the BBC teams on the ground, the TV team, the radio team, the live team, the World Service team. When you've got a lot of people running around the place, it's important to have one person there, a senior person who brings them all together. For example, classic case in a situation like that is that everybody goes to the same place. They hear that that person's been trapped here. Well, that's ridiculous waste of resources. When you've got an earthquake that's over 50 miles, you want people to go to different places, and I try to do it. So the first thing is IC. The second thing is working with senior correspondents, and so I work with sometimes John Simpson or Fergal Keane, the big names. And here's the thing: the big names like to have seasoned producers. Yeah, they like people with experience. We've known each other for a long time. And so when you have a story, for example, Kate and William, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, were going to India and Bhutan. The royal correspondent, Nicholas Witchell, looked at it and said, this is really difficult, logistically difficult. I need a producer who really knows what they're doing, and I will go down and I will just be that producer. But as well as working with very senior correspondents, the people who've been around a long time, because I've been there a long time, I also work with people who are coming up. And so, for example, the story that I've been talking about today, the Yazidi boy soldiers, Naomi Grimley, excellent reporter, hasn't actually done that much television, where I've done loads, thousands of packages. And so my experience and her energy and enthusiasm, and likewise over the past couple of years I've done a lot of work in Africa on the Ebola story. Now the BBC reporter that I was working with, Tulip Mazunda, again, terrific reporter, fantastic, done a bit more television, but still not hugely experienced, and also not hugely experienced in working in difficult places, okay? And because of all the years I've been doing this, I know how to work abroad. For example, last year I think I spent 4 months of the year abroad. I work for Foreign News, and most of those jobs are maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, 2 days, whatever. And working abroad is different from working in your own country. You need a slightly different skill set, you need a slightly different way of doing things. And so I see senior correspondent producer, junior correspondent producer, and then as like all good journalists, what do? I do what my editor tells me. What can you do to reduce the risk? Well, in somewhere like Mosul, you see the reporter is wearing body armour. Yeah, well, that reduces the risk. We spend a lot of money bringing in our own armoured vehicles. Well, that reduces the risk. When we go to places like that, we will nearly always, in fact, always have with us a security advisor. And they are nearly always ex-military, huge amount of experience, and their job is to do what we call dynamic risk assessment. Because you can do the risk assessment when you're sitting back in the hotel and you think, oh, well, we can do this and we can do that, da da da. When you're actually on the ground and there's people with guns and there's things going bang, you need what's called a dynamic risk assessment, and that is done by the security advisor. So you put these things in place and then you say, okay, with all these things in place, is the risk worth the effort that we're going to put into it? And that is a decision that is taken by the team on the ground in consultation with London. It's not an easy process. It might sound a bit bureaucratic, and that there is a form, you actually have to fill in a form. But the point is, the BBC is obliged, legally obliged, to do everything it can to keep us in the field as safe as we can be. Also, I am not the man whose body is shown on some ISIS video and my children see it on the internet. That doesn't happen. Okay? So you always have to take a judgment about these things. That said, you can make all the judgments you like and then things go wrong. I have spent a lot of time and effort staying out of the way of danger. That's the whole point. Okay, I'm not particularly especially brave. Not like there are some BBC correspondents who are really, really super brave. I think they're crazy. So what I say is, no story is worth my life. No pictures are worth a life-changing injury. My rule is that I help by telling the story. Now, if I was somewhere and a mortar exploded and there was somebody lying injured on the ground, as part of our BBC training we do battlefield first aid, of course. Am I going to walk away from that? No, absolutely not. But when you see, for example, in West Africa, in Ebola, you see terrible things. Am I going to go and pick up a sick child and take them to the hospital? No, because the risk of infection for myself is too high. What I will do is contact the appropriate authorities and so on. But again, I come back to this main thing. The main way I believe that journalists help is telling the stories. That's what we're supposed to do. How do you tell the story of many? And the story then, of course, is you remember Anne Frank. Why is Anne Frank, who was killed by the Nazis in Belsen, such an important thing? Is because she is one little girl who kept a diary, and in telling her story, she actually told the story of lots of people. I also truly believe that people are interested in people. And if you tell the story of one person and maybe of how a bigger event has impacted on them, the people, the viewers at home, if they're watching or they're listening or they're clicking, can relate to that. Yeah, people relate to the fact that there was a story that we did in Ebola, which got a lot of people interested, was that we turned up at a clinic and we found this family sitting in a car outside, and the clinic had turned them away, and one man in the car was sick. And we told the story of that family. Their brother had been sick, so the two brothers and the sister brought him to the clinic, but the clinic was full, so they had to take him somewhere else. There were 6 people in the car, 5 died of Ebola. And we went back and told that story, and we told the story of the woman. And so by finding the individual that illustrates the story, perhaps you can tell the story. But some stories are bigger than that. They're bigger than the individual. I think you'll find that successful journalism is nearly always based in people.